3, 2.
All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Ryan Ghelfi. This is David Laney, Brett Hornig. We're with Trails and Tarmac. We'll have Camellia Mayfield. She'll be joining us shortly. And anyways, yeah, so we're here with the Broken Arrow virtual series, which is awesome. Trying to do a whole bunch of things to get people excited and to help people get ready for what is a really awesome race and a hard race, right? So we're going to talk tonight about a bunch of different stuff relating to how to train for this race, how to think about training just in general, how to think about the altitude and what that's going to do to your pacing and how you're going to fuel and how do you deal with this vertical gain business. I'm sure you guys have seen the ladder. Pretty much the whole course is just ladders. I'm kidding. But yeah, so we're going to talk all about those things and more. So if you're watching on YouTube, then you can write in comments, which is cool. And we're going to be looking through those. And if someone puts a particularly good question, we'll do our best to answer it. Try not to make us look stupid though. Anyhow, so David, you're going to kick it off and talking about training and how to get your head wrapped around the next few months.
Yeah. So you've got a variety of races. We'll kind of be talking to people running any of the races, the 52K, 26K, 11K, BK, even some of you kids racers out there.
Yeah.
Very excited about that. So my topic is training and planning, how to structure your volume and intensity with the context of Broken Arrow as your goal race. So yeah, it's a very broad topic, but we'll do our best to kind of give some guidelines and kind of frame it in a way that will give you some things to think about. You've got over 10 weeks till race day, and that's a lot of time, a lot of opportunities for practice and dress rehearsals and learning about training and yourself and getting ready for it. So the main things I'll hit is how to structure a workout, how to do a general workout, how to structure a week, what your training week should kind of look like, that cycle, how to structure the training block, that big 10-week or 12-week cycle leading up to Broken Arrow. And then we'll talk about measuring volume and, how to kind of measure your training, how to give a good gauge of how you're doing and if you're progressing the way you want to. And finally, the relationship between volume and intensity. So let's kick it off with how to measure your volume. When I graduated from college, the only metric I used was miles. A lot of you probably use kilometers. That's like looking through a lens that you're kind of like looking through only one eye. You're really only getting a really like pointed picture of your training, and you can see it from all these different angles. And so you can look at it from vert. I'm climbing maybe 1,000 meters a week or 3,000 feet a week or whatever. We can also measure it by intensity. How hard was this week? How hard were these sessions? And kind of assign a perceived effort number to those sessions. We can also measure it by time. And that's probably what I would advise most people to do, because it kind of combines all of these things. So don't just look at your workouts, on a daily basis by miles or vert or effort, but look at it by time. That kind of encompasses all of those. If I'm running on a road, I might run 7-minute pace. And if I'm running on a trail, I might run 24-minute miles.
Easy.
And that's how it will be at Broken Arrow. It's a really, really rugged course. You're going uphill. You're at altitude. It's hot.
And it's just as hard. Running 24 minutes is the same as 7 minutes.
Way, or harder.
Right.
So kind of throw that time per mile. The mileage really isn't going to give you an accurate picture. Vert can give you a part of a picture, but time's really going to be your ticket for measuring your weekly and daily sessions and overall for the whole training block.
Right. So if it's really rocky or something, like one really rocky mile might take 20 minutes, or if it's 115 degrees.
Yeah. Or running up the escarpment, running up the VK. You're gonna go 3 miles and it'll take over an hour.
Right. And the effort that you're putting out is an hour, not 3 miles.
An hour is always an hour.
Yeah.
And that's like what our bodies care more about.
Right. Yeah. And I would think that it's important to have it's hard to know what your time's going to be for the finish, but have a general idea. Are you going to be out on the course for 6 hours? Are you going to be out on the course for 8 hours? Are you going to be out on the course for 5? Are you doing the VK? Is it going to be about an hour? Training for time is going to give you a lot better idea. If you have a long run, you might want to do half of the time you're planning to be out there, rather than just saying, I'm going to go do a 15 miler. 15 miler isn't going to really, it might prepare you if you're on the trail, but if you're on the road, that's not going to prepare you for a 52K, even though it's half the distance. Half the distance could be 15 miles. Half the time could be 6 hours.
Easy.
So just really think about time, kind of get that in your brain, and use that to guide your training more than miles, and use vert as well. Next thing we're going to talk about quickly, and if you have questions, throw them in the chat and we'll hit those at the end. I know I'm just going over things really quickly. Next thing we're talking about quickly is the relationship between volume and intensity. Essentially,
What do you mean by volume? When you say volume,
yeah,
you mean,
so what we just talked about, volume being the time you're training per week,
yeah,
and intensity being the effort, how hard your training is. The lower your intensity is, the lower the effort, the higher you can, the more miles, the more hours, the more vert you can do. If you have a really intense week with a lot of hard workouts, maybe you're doing hard hill repeats or a hard long run, you're going to want that volume, the hours per week, to be lower. Typically, if you start raising both of those, it's just not, you're not going to be consistent. We want to be durable and we want to be fatigue resistant runners, and we want to be consistent.
and healthy, yeah.
And yeah, healthy is being consistent is how you are healthy, and being healthy is how you are consistent. So increasing volume and increasing intensity is pretty difficult on the body. So we like to kind of sidestep them, kind of do 1 week of higher intensity, 1 week of higher volume. You might do 2 weeks of volume and 1 week of intensity, but just not increasing both every week. So I know that was kind of a quick overview, but essentially they need to have give and take. Volume and intensity need to have give and take, and just be aware, be comfortable with that.
You think about it. It's not like you just think only about your volume.
Right.
Like this intensity piece, it's a pretty big factor in your overall stress that you're putting your body through.
Yeah. So, and then I know I'm talking about a lot of intensity without really describing it, but intensity would be harder workouts, harder, faster running. For Broken Arrow, if you're kind of a beginner, kind of one of your first ultras or something, probably most of what you should be doing is easy. Probably 90% of the time you're training should be at a pretty easy effort, at a comfortable, relaxed, conversational pace where you are more focused on volume than intensity. If you've been running for a long time and you're comfortable doing workouts and you're more competitive, then you can increase that intensity for sure. But again, for 90% of the time I'm out, I'm running really easy, conversational, not out of breath, not breathing super hard, even if I'm going uphill, which Broken Arrow is. I do a ton of power hiking.
Yes, sir.
A Broken Arrow, you're going to hike over 35% of the race.
Easy. I mean, remember we did this the other year.
The winners will hike probably 30%.
Yeah.
And everyone else will probably hike,
Well,
like 50% of the time out there.
it's a lot of hiking.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hiking, no matter who you are.
Yeah.
So
So be comfortable with that easy effort hiking. You don't have to run up the hills. Hiking is really beneficial, and it's what you'll be doing most of at Broken Arrow anyway. So get comfortable doing that in your training. So if you want to do a workout, say you want to do a threshold run, like a tempo, like kind of up pace run. If you want to do hill repeats, something like that, start with a warm up. Do the workout. Start with the cool down. Getting the body ready is really important. I feel like a lot of people forget to cool down or forget to warm up and just kind of start doing a workout. So if you're going to do a higher intensity workout, be sure you warm up for it. Be sure you cool down for it. Following on that, we're kind of talking about how to structure a week. So if you have a workout, follow that by a recovery day or a day off. If you have a long run, follow that by a recovery day or a day off. So kind of have this cycle of easy, hard, off, easy, long, off. That it doesn't have to be exactly that, but kind of have it be like your week should kind of look like a roller coaster of volume, recovery, intensity, recovery. Don't do a really hard workout and then a long run right after it, unless that's really, really intentional, unless you've been running for a long time and really know that that's what you need to do for this kind of race. 99% of people need to follow hard sessions, hard stress by recovery.
It's really being intentional about it, as opposed to waking up and saying,
Totally.
what should I really do today? And like,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna hammer because I feel good,
Right.
which is it's pretty easy to do that. I mean, we've all been there. I guarantee everyone at this table's done that at
Yeah.
times too.
Yeah.
It's just planning and thinking about it is really one of the main keys.
Yeah, absolutely. Having a plan, having an Excel spreadsheet with generally what you want to get done will really help guide your training. Finally, if you want to build that Excel spreadsheet, structuring the whole training block, the 10 weeks or 12 weeks or whatever you have before the race, again, kind of like how the week is a cycle of easy, hard, off, easy, long, kind of that roller coaster. That's kind of how you want the weeks to be. Kind of building a building week, and then a recovery week with lower, 10 to 15% decrease in volume, and then build back up, and then do another recovery week.
Mhm.
So you just want that kind of cycle. Your body needs recovery weeks to get better, and that's how you get better, is by rebuilding.
And put the intensity too. Like, just say, I'm gonna run, instead of running 5 hours, I'll run 3 or 4 and whatever.
Mhm.
And you think, hey, maybe I don't need the hardest workout also on that recovery week.
Yeah.
Make sure that workout is also somewhat less than you've been doing.
Yeah. So just kind of cycle that, increasing weeks, and then add those recovery weeks. You're not going to want to do them. You're going to want to continue building, but to become fatigue resistant, to become durable, to be consistent, you have to not get injured, and you have to not get too tired. And so being a little bit conservative, being 95% trained is always better than being 101% trained, because then you get injured and burned out, and race day is not fun.
And slower.
And you want your best performance to be on the day that you signed up for. I mean, you don't get to choose when the race is, so you better do all the right things to be most prepared for that day.
Yeah.
And then just to wrap things up really quick, you have every weekend, you have or every day, whatever your work schedule is, you have an opportunity to have a dress rehearsal for the race. So wear the stuff you want to race in. The athletes I coach, they have a dress rehearsal the 8 weeks before a race, and they slowly get into that method of getting their pack on and getting their shoes on and getting their nutrition dialed and eating breakfast like they would on race morning. So just go out and practice that, practice the race feeling, and utilize the Broken Arrow training runs. You can literally go out and train with the people who you're going to be racing with, see the course, get an idea of what you're going to be dealing with on race day. And those are super valuable and will give you an amazing opportunity.
August 7th, I
Just get
think.
comfortable, yeah.
August 7th is the one coming up that you can
You should absolutely
sign
do
up
that.
and go.
They're going to be really, really valuable.
So I got a question
So yeah.
for you from a training standpoint.
Okay.
You mentioned dress rehearsals and getting everything ready to go and going through the motions of race day. Do you also need to go your race distance?
Yeah, definitely not. Good point. It's like a dress rehearsal. It should really be significantly less, significantly easier.
You don't need to go
just kind of
50K.
Yeah, definitely.
before racing.
You might have like pieces of your run.
Maybe go half the distance or 25%, or you're going to slowly build into that.
And you could say, most of the run is easy, but you might have a piece where you're like, well, let's practice race pace, but I don't want it to be all 3 or 4 hours of this long run. Maybe it's 30 minutes of that long run. Let's try to hone in on what race pace is, but you don't have to do it the whole time.
Yeah, save that for the race.
Yeah. So that's a quick way to surface overview of kind of training and planning for Broken Arrow. If you have questions, throw them in the chat and we'll get to them kind of at the end.
We gave David a really hard topic because this is like a book that it could be a very thick book. And I mean, it is a lot of different thick books, but hard to do it in 15 minutes. So well, I think that we're going to kick it over to Brett. Brett Hornig, you're going to tell us about
We're gonna go.
fueling and hydration, but really as it pertains to this race, because there's a lot of nuances when you're running Broken Arrow.
Yeah, so I've done Broken Arrow 3 times now, and I really didn't dial in the nutrition and hydration until the third one. So I definitely like to share a lot about what I've learned and what can help you to not have to take 3 times to get everything all dialed in. One of the biggest parts about nutrition and hydration, especially for a course and a race like Broken Arrow, kind of regardless of the distances, like there's a lot of variables up there that are going to try and sabotage your stomach. The altitude, yeah, it just wants to jack you up, and you got to do everything to fight against that.
Yeah, that's right.
The altitude wants to jack up your stomach. The steep climbs, the steep descents don't help with digesting food. And there's always the potential for heat of a Broken Arrow, perhaps even more so than ever with the race being in October.
And there's no shade, right?
No, it's
Very little shade.
first, mile or two of the 26 and 52K are in the trees, but then once you pop out, the sun's just going to be beating straight down. So there's a lot of different things that can make the body work in a way where the stomach and the digestive system gets put very far down on the hierarchy of importance. And that importance is that the body kind of determines. You don't really get to choose that. That's mostly in regards to staying alive. There's only a finite amount of blood in your body. A good amount of it when you're running goes to your brain because you need your brain. That's important. An amount goes to your muscles because that is what's powering you to go. There's going to be an amount going to your skin for cooling when it's warm out. And then last on the list is your stomach and your digestive system. When you take into all the environmental factors of Broken Arrow, there's not a lot of blood left to help digest food in your stomach. And that's where practicing comes into play. So important. Figuring out exactly what types of running foods are going to work well for your stomach. And most of these running companies, they have very similar general guidelines in regards to how much should I be eating per hour. And it usually always comes down to 200 to 300 calories per hour. And most of what you're going to be taking in is going to be some sort of sugar. That's what we turn into usable fuel the easiest. And even for the longer race, like the 52K, our bodies are still at that point where we're processing and utilizing mostly sugar. Then from a running food standpoint, that can be found, there's, your running gels. We've got our chews. We have our drink mixes. A lot of people tend to prefer one versus the other.
Right.
Sometimes we'll switch depending on where we are in course. I always tend to start out with chews, trying harder, getting excited about getting to the end. So then I need more simple things. What's important is that you're continuing to try and get something in all the time. In regards to, what's actually going to be out on course, that's always a very common question that, a lot of my athletes will ask me. Spring energy gels. And for electrolyte drink mix, there's going to be Tailwind out there on course. Tailwind is a super simple sugar. It's dextrose, which is, I think, one of the simplest that they can make. And Spring's also one of the more simple sugars as well. So you're gonna have a lot of opportunities to try out different fueling brands. You might try drinking Tailwind. You might realize the flavor or, might have too much sodium or not enough. It just might not be the right drink mix for you. You have time to experiment with other products. Same with the gels. A lot of people will bring everything that they plan. That's something that you actually do get to control.
What about soda? Do you ever drink soda?
I drink a good amount of soda. I try and save the soda as, like the secret rocket fuel last half. Some of these running fuels, sodas and sugars is caffeine. It can be your best friend. It can be your worst enemy. A lot of times when we start running and our metabolism is like really rolling, we're like, oh yeah, I could do 100 milligrams of caffeine in a gel. That's a cup of coffee. but your body might perceive that after you're 3, 4, 5 hours into a run, triple or quadruple the intensity of normal. So, you know, that's just something to be aware of and to try out, you know, when you're out on your long runs. It's, you know, save, I normally do when I wake up in the morning. Yeah, these are just all things to be able to practice and, you know, just get dialed in before race day. So
Your gut.
pacing is super important. You're right. That goes with the kind of the amount of blood in your body and the hierarchy. You know, the start of a race is very exciting,
It is.
especially when we haven't up at Squaw Valley. It's like 90 seconds where we're in full oxygen debt. And when we're breathing that hard and going way harder than what our actual pace should be, our stomach decides to just stop trying to digest calories, and that outcome is different from person to person, but it's negative.
It's really good.
It's never a good thing, you know, whether it's, yeah, we don't need to go too far into detail on
Getting
the
sick.
body rejecting, yes, nutrition, but for the entire time that you plan to be out there, you're not going to be giving your body the chance to be digesting in calories early on. And that's where those late race lulls, those big bonks, and just kind of good, you know, instead of skipping that gel or running a little bit harder because we feel good at the beginning, use that as an opportunity to stay on top of your fueling plan. And that way, you know, when you're running over the second half of the race, the needle's not just flirting on E the whole time. You know, it's way better to be, you know, midway or even towards full.
Yeah,
just on empty.
Went so hard. It's just a long way to the finish at that point.
Yeah, it takes a long time to get that back.
Yeah.
And if that does happen, your race isn't over.
Yeah.
That mistake, dial the intensity down really, really low. You know, for the most part, it's just walk at a casual 5 to 10 minutes. It will feel like forever, but that is enough time to let the stomach kind of unwind, start doing its thing again. And that's going to save you way more time in the long term to be able to get that stomach working again, as opposed to just forcing it miserably again from aid station to aid station, coasting in on chicken broth. And
yep, I know how to get sick.
Ideally, we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I've also seen people just totally turn it around, and they've like just sat at an aid station for like 5 minutes, downed like 2 PB&J sandwiches, and like gotten back out there just with like getting the heart rate down, getting some nutrients.
Yep. It's long, like it's not all unicorns and sprinkles the whole time.
Yeah, you just have to be prepared for that roller coaster. Absolutely. Every time there's a low, try and figure out what the problem is, whether your effort's just too high or whether you need food, you need to sit down and eat some peanut butter and jelly and have a Coke.
Mm-hmm.
It is a roller coaster, just like training. And so just evaluate that and know your highest always around the corner for you. Even if you just are like, this is the worst thing ever.
Yeah. And you know, having practice leading up to the race. That's gonna give you that kind of mental tenacity to make those right decisions during the race, because it is very hard to think good, wise decisions when you're out there. Like David and I were just watching Step Brothers the other night. He's like, I'm just gonna make the wise decision. I'm gonna get a job at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. I hear they give you the tools. You need to be your own boss.
But I think what we should do now is so hopefully everyone can see Camellia, but Camellia is with us now. She's not here in the same, I guess you'd call this our studio. But
Hey, Ryan, we're gonna take one quick 1 minute break
okay.
and check the feed. We're getting a little bit of pause in there, and so we're gonna check that real quick and then come right back in. So maybe everybody take like a 60-second break,
All right, cool.
and
So
we'll come right back in.
Yeah, 60-second break, and we're gonna come right back.
I mean,